So that's my presentation, which is the results of my PhD. And I will approach most of this, but also there's some other parts at the end. You keep watching, Toy. So my undergraduate, my academic trajectory, I studied philosophy for 3 years. I never completed because, as many of us when we are undergrad, we think, oh, how can I find a job as a philosopher one day in the world? So I went and did communication degree, and then on my postgrad, I did my master in semiotics, specialized in information system. I did my PhD in semiotics, and in both of these degrees, I have the privilege of having this mate on my side. We have the same supervisor, we did the same trajectory. This was almost a few years back in time. And then I moved to New Zealand to do my PhD in practice-led in art and design. I have 25 years of teaching and learning. I was a student from this house, and this was also the house where I started to teach a few years back in time. So I have 28 years as artistic practice. I am a landscape photographer, but I also work quite a lot as an editorial photographer doing fashion magazines. And my fields of research are practice-oriented research, visual semiotics, design and education, and global south, which includes a big interest in indigenous epistemologies. So I have a disclaimer here for my Māori colleagues. I'm not Māori, and I acknowledge my limitations in fully understand the complexity of Māori worldviews. These ideas will always remain beyond my full comprehension. This presentation reflects my effort to engage with and apply these concepts to my research with the ultimate respect. My aim is to approach this work with humility, acknowledging the privilege of learning from Māori colleagues and Māori knowledge systems. So I'm a landscape photographer, so I do photographs of the land. And I have been doing this quite a while. I have been to 36 countries so far, making stories that are made from images. This was a story we did in Canada, the Rocky Mountains. This was another story that we made when we went to photograph the Northern Lights in Iceland. And this was another story we did about Lawrence of Arabia, in every place that Lawrence of Arabia has been in Jordan. And well, although I had been to many places, at a certain point of my work, I start to question some of those things. And I think one of the most clear points for me was when I went to do a story in Chile, the country that some of us were there. So this is in Atacama Desert in the north. We start making a story there. This is Valley de la Luna, Valley of the Moon, also in Atacama Desert. And then we had a story that we have to photograph the Patagonia in both Argentina and Chile. And we start in Fitzroy, which is the Argentinian Patagonia, the south of Argentina. And we were there for almost a few days, beautiful sunny days, the clouds around the mountain all the time. And then we went to Torres del Paine, which is the beautiful park of Terra del Fuego in Chile, to do these 3 massive rocks that you can't see because they are covered by the clouds. And at that time we have to do this photograph because we were commissioned. All the trip was paid by this couple of photographs that we had to do there. Stay a week, not a single day, the clouds moved on. So I took the telephone number from the person in the place that we were staying, and after we left, beautiful day, could be seen. So he was with me. The thing was personal. So there was a new problem. There was something more on the landscape to be considered by someone photographing the land, which brought me to my future research question when I went to do my PhD which are, what are the issues that must be addressed when photographing land to express an immersive, embodied, spiritually attuned relationship between the self and what is recorded. So this became my question for another study that I want to pursue. Why that's important? Because my background is a very different background from what I would become. As me and Steagall, we studied these guys all our lives, and we used to be fascinated by them. Starting with Saussure and about the relationships and structures. So we study these guys all the time, and we try to understand everything from the relationships and the structures that are formed inside those relationships. So from Saussure to Peirce, Lévi-Strauss, the Derrida later, Foucault, Deleuze, Guattari, we will read these guys and read again, and trying to understand these words from these relationships. And this framework wouldn't give me what I need for my new research. So there's a turning point in my career when I want to take this research and this investigation further. And I decided to move to New Zealand to do a practicing lead PhD using landscape photography. And then I met two very gifted people, Professor Wellbeings, Professor Hinemata McNeil. Beautiful Professor McNeil. So Professor McNeil, she was my reviewing my confirmation of candidature. And she, I think by a very fortuitous accident, I think she likes me. She almost adopted me as a son, so I will spend Christmas in the heart of her family. And for us, that we were starting in a place that nobody knew us, it was absolutely huge. And Professor Wellbeings that you show here, extraordinary show, he didn't run today, but he usually will run from side to side, and he was the one who became my mentor. And after that, a very good friend. These people will change my life, open me the doors to understand things I never ever imagined. So I did a new toolbox of ideas, and very similar with David. I was going to Immersive phenomenology studies, and Māori cognition can be studied as a situated phenomenon. So starting with Spinoza, that funnily enough was a guy who wrote a very interesting book called Ethics, just 70 years after Descartes, but nobody never knew until Deleuze rediscovered him. Because he was a Jew, and he talks against something called free will, that was something very important for the church at that time. So they put him in high. And of course, guys, that David has been commented, it was Husserl, that was the first guy who developed a method to understand the phenomena. Bergson, he will talk about time as a duration. Oh, I love it. Heidegger, yeah, we know he was Nazi, we know that, but we love him and the ideas of Dasein and the study of the nature of human experience. And Merleau-Ponty, was his phrase there, that talks about the embodied nature of perception. And from South America, there's quite a few guys, which is Varela, Antonio Varela, Francisco Maturana, that are biologists, neuroscientists, and they bring us to this study phenomena through a very interesting lens. Now I'm trying to go to the more interesting part. But there was something missing. I think we in Brazil, we are very spiritual. I think I would say very religious in certain points. This is the largest Catholic country in the world. I was never Catholic, I was never even religious. But there is a sense of spirituality that I think followed us in our culture in one way or another. There was a missing part, and it was exactly this missing part that I found in Maori culture, which is the concept of the Māori. So for Reverend Marsden, Maori is the spark of life that animates beings, objects, and ecosystems. connecting them in a web of interdependence. For me, this was new. In this country, we were told that the land was an inanimated thing. We go there, we plant, we put a crop, we conquest the world. You never heard anything about land being alive, being a living thing. Now, I know you might find me very ignorant. I have to confess I was. And many of us probably were the same thing. So it's the life force that binds the physical and spiritual dimension of whole thing. So I was completed in my framework, and I could start to develop my research. So as many of us, you see that one of the things, we try to be very didactic here, because one of our things, by publishing the procedures of this conference, we want, and that's our old desire for me and Sarah, to build a body of knowledge around praxis research. So maybe in the future we have praxis research here in our country. Sarah promised me that you will to create the first PhD in praxis led in the future. So we'll jump the paradigm part that is pretty much the same of everyone. So in terms of methodology, I work with praxis-led research that combines creative praxis with reflective inquiry. There's this guy, Donald Scone, who wrote a beautiful, interesting book about that. But they also use your other methodologies. One methodology that Professor Lewis is one of the global leaders, which is holistic inquiry, which is an internal search to discover the nature of meaning and experience. There are other methodologies, and somehow they were employed or attracted to this trajectory. And tacit knowing is one that I got quite fascinated, especially in a country with such good football players. How Pelé did what he did. And I keep saying videos for James, say, look, this guy was doing that 30, 40 years back in time. So tacit know is things that we know, but we can't explain verbally. The precognitive knowing that cannot be articulated by verbal means. There is also a lot in the sense of immersion that I employed. It's a turning inward to the structure of the contained perceptions, feelings, intuitions, housed in the internal frame of reference. And there's this term of dwelling, and Heidegger called it wohnen. And he puts this usually dwellings to be inside and to live in a house or something. Well, Heidegger puts it in a different way. He puts it a way of being that's rooted in care, connection, and harmony with the world. So just an intimate, living engagement with the environment, akin to nurturing and being attuned to one's surroundings. So these are the methodologies that I employed. In my methods, I will walk into the land, I will spend many, many hours in these rugged landscapes in New Zealand. Don't forget, New Zealand is beautiful. And from Brazil, we see all these beautiful photographs, but as well we were saying yesterday, it's a land that you go, and sometimes you don't come back. It's quite rugged, it can be pretty dangerous. So I will talk with the land. No, without any alcohol, trust me. It was something that after hours, you, especially by yourself, you start to really be sensitive to some of those things. And I was always a sense of being very open, not only to the physical, but to the living essence that I started to discover in those lands. So we were not inanimated anymore. We were alive. And I could hear that breath, I could hear that sensation for me. So I'm a photographer, so I have to record those things. I usually use a tripod because I usually will record all the possible range of light in a scene, so I can work on my digital studio after that. Where's the time? I see. Is this impossible guy to pronounce his name? His name is You can try at home. Try and never. But he talks about something as a state of flow, which is a state where one becomes in the feeling of knowing what to do. about the precision notes of physicality of time. For me, I have been noticing that quite a lot when I was photographing under zero and never feeling cold, because you get into a certain mood that you are really connected to what you're doing. It was something very interesting to know. And I had a few journeys that I use in both ways. I take notes about geography and stuff that I was discovering, but I also use it in a different way to try to refer to feelings and impressions that will not necessarily be able to be expressed through prose. So I would say it's the closest to a kind of poetic writing. And I would write about how I would feel a certain perspective in a place that I was photographing. So this is a photograph of the Henda, and it was quite impressive the way these landscapes in New Zealand made you feel so small. So here there's some photographs of my thesis that I will go a little fast so I can talk about the closure. But I look back, there's also this element that something is alive there, that's something that's not easy, that's not tranquil. There's some kind of mix of dangers with aliveness. And this is a place in Piha. It's a place that it can be quite dangerous. People die there almost every week. There's even a program on television of people being saved. This is Whakaari, land of us. And it's called White Island. It's a place that when we visit, a couple of weeks after that, there was an accident. This is the only island in the world that's a volcano. So we visited, and after 2 or 3 weeks, there was an eruption. 50 people died. They never reopened the island. It smells death. It smells death. I usually never know anything about the place, but one of the things I write about is smells death. It's something different there. And you can see the kind of beautiful landscapes New Zealand will have. So then what? And I know many of our colleagues should contribute to knowledge. But for me, one of the things that was very interesting, I was very, very fortunate to engage with was partnerships with so many Māori colleagues, like Tangaroa and the beautiful and humble Taurolins. And I had the opportunity to work with Toy, his PhD, and we worked together, I think it was about 3 intensive years, and I can tell why. Because Toy is someone very intense, and we saw him here, and he engaged with. So I worked with Toy, and I was photographing, I was contributing with the photography of Toy. And during these 3 years, you work together, and I think we spent more time with Toy at the time than with Janet. It was something very intense. And it's so funny because we arrived there and said, well, yeah, let's go sit down. You can leave all the equipment. And we started to visit all Taurua's family, and they were all dead. They were all the same time. So you have to visit every cemetery and talk to everyone and ask permission for everyone. And I started to understand a very different one. And I remember we had one meeting with Fire. That was very clever explained. No, because the word in this, and she said, never forget that she said, you don't know the power of a karakia. And I start to understand a very different world than mine. We have to work intensively. And so what I was gifted was with a family that was adopting me there. And you probably say, yeah, that's probably dad, that's probably brother. Where's mom? Well, she's here with her beautiful New Zealand smile. And it was one of the most magnetic, strong women that I ever met. And it was fantastic because the first time I met her, she said, you stay there because you might kill me. It was fabulous. So we worked together for this project. And these are some of the photographs, although they are beautiful, they represent what Aotearoa was explaining today about how difficult was that story, and they are really bad. And there are some of these beautiful lands to a place that I almost feel very at home now. So this is a little bit of my process, part of my process, and so I will go during the place and I will study the place during the day. I will find the angles. I will understand what's the time for me to go there and make that photograph. Because as Aotearoa explained it, and we'll also mention, this is our forested part. This is Makio. It was the mountain that when I knew this photograph was important for Toi, so I wanted to do this photograph that later on became this image. And well, that's great, fantastic technique, composition, great. So I remember this photograph that I want to read you. That's a photograph that Toi opened his presentation because I knew it was an important photograph for Toi because behind these walls here, there is a myth that these two fishes was relieved in the river. And then everything starts, and the river is, the stream is just behind that pond. So this is a very important place. And I'm not the son of Whakatoria Hiaka. But Aotearoa really likes this photograph, perhaps because he was here. Lighting the poles. Because it was really dark. So he went there and said, you go, and he lights the poles and he really likes this photograph. But I have a different idea for this photograph, which is that photograph, that I want the river flowing in between. That particular night was freezing there, because guys, you don't know how that can be cold in the winter. And it was about 2 degrees, Janet didn't left the car all the time. And I was there half an hour. For some reason, that night, I felt really I want to go to the beach. I never went to the beach. At that night, it was not the ideal day, because I was, my head torch finished the battery, and I was completely in the dark. So for some reason, stubborn, I went to the beach, and this is what I could see in the beach. Nothing at all. There was no moon, there was nothing. So I made this very, very long exhibition. I think it was 3 or 4 minutes. And then that. And I was blown away to see, wow, that's why. And for the first time I see almost you could hear a call or something. And I was saying up to a very stupid Western thing, and I said, oh yeah, I'm trying to think, what is that? Oh, it's alga, and trying to find a rational explanation. And then we met Uncle Paki on the next day. He told me, he photographed the Māori of Whakatoria. Welcome. So, thank you very much.